I recently got the chance to stay at the Inn at 500, located in the heart of downtown Boise. With complimentary drinks at check-in and spacious luxe penthouses and suites, it's an ideal spot for celebrations and your visitors. It was the perfect place for me and my husband to sneak away for a little staycation. We loved the cozy fireplace in our room and the balcony with gorgeous views of the city skyline, where we shared coffee in the morning. Ready to plan an unforgettable Boise stay? Book now at inat500.com.
Today on CityCast Boise, one of the most important local races this election is in our 15th legislative district. Can the Democrat hold on to this swingy West Boise seat, or will the Republican challenger finally take it? Our host Lindsay Van Allen is getting the deets from Idaho Press reporter Laura Guido. It's Tuesday, October 22nd. I'm Frankie Barnhill filling in for Lindsay Van Allen, and this is what Boise's talking about.
Let's take a look at who the candidates are for the District 15 Senate race. First, there's Senator Rick Just, a Democrat. What's his campaign message been? What is his focus been?
He served one term in the Senate, and Senator Just, he focuses a lot on environmental issues. He was a long-time Idaho Parks and Recreation employee. Open spaces are kind of a major priority of his. And then, like the rest of the Idaho Democrats, he has a big focus on public education and making sure that public funds stay with public schools, which isn't something that everyone in the legislature necessarily thinks. And so kind of a big message that every Democrat that I've talked to has been that they want to make sure that we keep doing that here in Idaho.
Okay, so kind of the same messaging we've heard a lot from a lot of other Democrats in the state.
Yeah, definitely. And a similar message we've been kind of hearing the last 3 years. This has been a major issue in the legislature.
Okay, and his competitor or contender is former Representative Cody Galloway, a Republican. And what has her campaign messaging been focused on?
Representative Galloway actually lost to Just 2 years ago, but it was a pretty narrow race. So this is kind of her thinking that the Republicans should take this seat back. And she has been concerned about the Senate being moved too far to the left. She is pretty conservative on the spectrum of Idaho politics. On the school choice issue, she thinks that there's probably room for public funds to go to some sort of tax credit or some other similar program where parents could use it for private education. She does want to fund public education. The funding formula was a major priority of hers, and maybe finding a better way to fund public schools. That's been kind of something that's been brought up quite a bit in the legislature, but she characterized Just as being woke and, aligning with the rest of the Democratic Party on a lot of issues like transgender issues and things like that. And so she thinks that the district should be represented by someone who's far more conservative.
And like you mentioned, this election is a rematch between them. In 2022, Senator Rick Just won by just about 300 votes. Has anything changed in the district that may affect the outcome this time around?
I don't know that anything has changed in the district, but I would say that the primary results did seem like they moved things a little farther to the right in many cases, especially in other parts of the state, kind of the Magic Valley area. There were a lot of, you might say, traditional Republicans, and they did get ousted by people who are a little farther to the right. So that could be a trend that we're seeing. But, when Senator Just won, I think he won in a year where that had been happening as well, but his race was kind of the exception. So it's hard to say. I mean, I think that's why District 15 is such a focus for people. I mean, it's going to be a close contest, I think, either way.
Yeah, it's a pretty hotly contested seat. And the last election was a midterm election, and this is a presidential election year. Do you think that could potentially change the election outcome?
Well, yeah, like you said, I mean, he won by about 300 votes. And so turnout is going to be definitely a factor. I mean, I can't tell you in whose favor, but it will be a factor in this. And I think this race, they're expecting pretty high turnout.
And you reported that both candidates are really focused on education, just different aspects of public education, but they have very different approaches. I kind of want to dive into that a little bit more. Can you walk us through their contrasting perspectives?
Yeah. So, like I said, a big topic of debate in the legislature the last 3 years really has been this idea of school choice. What it's been kind of called overarching, but basically there's a certain group of legislators who think that, taxpayers who are paying into our tax base, but they're not sending their kids to public schools, should get some sort of support for a different type of education if they choose that. That's not been allowed in Idaho historically. So there's been kind of this debate on, if we do this, how do we do it in a way that doesn't take away from Idaho's public schools, which the legislature is constitutionally obligated to, maintain an adequate public education system.
Mm-hmm.
There's a disagreement on what constitutes adequate. So it's a big matter of debate. There's been a lot of spending outside of the state spending on this issue. Senator Just showed me some flyers that were sent opposing him, and they were paid for by the American Federation for Children. They have offices in Dallas. Their tax filings have like a Maryland address, so I'm not really sure where exactly they're based, but they're a huge kind of school choice supporter, and they were spending a decent amount of money on flyers opposing Senator Just, which just kind of shows how big of an issue it is and how much money and pressure there is around it. He has pretty much said that he would oppose any proposal that would accomplish this. He just doesn't think we've adequately funded public schools. And if people want to get a private education, then that's their choice, but they should pay for it on their own.
So is the main difference in their education opinion this school of choice issue, that Senator Rick Just feels all of that money should stay with public schools, and really funding a robust, quote unquote, adequate public school system. And Representative Galloway feels that money should be given to families who are doing private school or homeschool that would come from that public school funding. Yeah.
And she's a former teacher as well, an educator. And so Galloway basically says, people are dealing with so many other costs with inflation and housing. And she just said that she's supportive in them funding their kids' education, kind of no matter which way they choose to do that. And some of the proposals could also go towards homeschooling as well. But she basically says, this would be our way to support families of young children, kind of no matter what they choose.
Fever, cough, congestion. When the symptoms keep coming, but you've got to keep going, you can rely on Mucinex Fast Max All-in-One. Just one dose of Mucinex Fast Max All-in-One relieves up to 9 cold and flu symptoms, helping you get on with your day. Need cold and flu relief? Get Mucinex Fast Max All-in-One and Done Relief. It's comeback season. Use as directed.
This episode is brought to you by Amazon. The holidays are here, and you know what that means? It's time to get your friends and family the gifts they deserve. Take the stress out of shopping with Amazon's great deals and low prices on a huge range of items from toys to tech and much more. Whoever you're gifting for, Amazon has great prices on everything you need this holiday season. Shop early holiday deals now.
Laura, it's really uncommon for districts in Idaho to be contentious or to be hotly contested. So what is it about District 15 that makes it different? Where is it? What is the population that lives there? Why is this a seat that's so up for grabs for both the Democratic and Republican Party?
So this district covers West Boise. It's a little closer to Meridian, which is more conservative than Boise typically. As you get kind of closer to the north end and downtown, things get a lot more, I guess, reliably blue. But this district is definitely a lot more purple. And that's why Democrats have been putting a lot of their resources towards this one, and Republicans have been also putting a lot of resources towards trying to flip some of these seats.
Another hot button issue in Idaho is our near total abortion ban. What is each candidate's stance on our current abortion laws?
So Senator Just, he basically told me he supports a health exemption, which means that, currently Idaho's total abortion ban is a felony prison sentence for abortion providers. There's pretty narrow exceptions for cases of rape and incest if it's in the first trimester and if there's a police report. Mm-hmm. There's also an exemption to prevent the death of the mother, and a lot of people argue, and a lot of health providers have come to the legislature and asked to change that to protect the health of the mother, because they say it's really hard to determine, when a woman is just about to die, whereas there might be things that they could do earlier to make sure she stays healthy and they protect her future fertility.
What is Representative Galloway's stance on this issue?
Representative Galloway has received a good amount of funding from some powerful pro-life organizations in Idaho, including Idaho Chooses Life. I don't remember if she mentioned this specifically, but I don't think that she supports adding a health exemption.
Okay, so they come off pretty different on that stance also. Mm-hmm. And this has become one of the most expensive elections for a seat in the Idaho legislature right now. How much has each candidate raised, and where is their money coming from?
Senator Just has over $138,000 in contributions for this election cycle. The majority of that is coming from individuals. And then he has, about 15,000, close to 16,000 from industry PACs. Galloway has about $86,000 in contributions, which is still a lot for a local legislative race. Mm-hmm. She also has the majority of it from individual contributors. It's close to 62,000 from individuals, and then 14,000 from company industry PACs and stuff like that. And just to illustrate how much more that is, I looked up a less competitive race. District 16 is in, farther into Boise. It's a little more a bluer district, and mm-hmm. Senator Robbie has got $23,000 in contributions, just because she probably feels a little more comfortable in her race. But that's just kind of shows you the difference of typically what you would see, I think, in some of these races is 20 to 30,000, and this is quite a bit more.
Yeah. Why has this race gotten so expensive?
I think both sides see it as up for grabs, and so they're focusing resources there. This district is unique in Idaho in that it's represented by both Democrats and a Republican. So one of the House seats is held by Republican Representative Dory Healy, and then the other two seats are held by Democrats. So really, it could go either way. And like we mentioned before, it was super close last time. So I think both sides see it as something they can either pick up, or a seat, the Democrats see it as a seat that they can hold when they don't have very many in Idaho.
Yeah. What's at stake with this seat for Republicans and for Democrats?
Republicans have a pretty clear supermajority, but we have seen instances where the Democrats can stop things from moving forward. One kind of interesting example from last year was the Democrats and the very far right Freedom Caucus came together on this issue around there was this pesticide company that was lobbying really hard for this bill to basically give them some immunity for any potential health effects from their pesticides. And the Democrats and the Freedom Caucus had enough votes between the two of them to kill that bill. So it's an unlikely pairing, but every once in a while that does happen. But the Senate has been seen historically as been a little more moderate, and I use that term lightly. I mean, I don't think a lot of those people would consider themselves particularly moderate, but just in contrast with the House, the Senate makeup could be totally different next year. I mean, every seat's up for election, so anything's up for grabs. So the Senate could have a very different dynamic next year.
Yeah. So the impact could be some of these bills that were maybe more extreme or had more of an impact, like librarians potentially being jailed, might not be tabled. They might actually be up for a vote in the Senate if seats like District 15 are flipped.
This seat would definitely make a difference if someone like Galloway were to kind of align with maybe some of these farther right legislators.
Is there anything else that you found from your reporting that Idahoans should know about before this election, before they head to the polls?
I think education is going to be kind of the number one issue. I know we've kind of harped on it a lot, but it is outside of Medicaid, it's the biggest chunk of our state budget. It impacts a lot of people who live here. There's a lot of differences in how people think we should do it. Something like a school choice tax credit might benefit somewhere like West Boise. But then, there's places that are very rural that don't have any private schools, so it wouldn't really help them that much. It's definitely something to keep an eye on, especially because there has been so much money put into it. The American Federation for Children has also spent quite a bit of money lobbying. I think it's one of the top lobbying companies in Idaho, or it has been the last couple of years. So I think that's going to be a major topic of discussion. I think abortion will continue to be a discussion. I don't think there's a lot of political motivation to bring anything forward, but I think this will be a race to watch for sure.
Yeah, it'll be really interesting to see how that lobbying and out-of-state money, how much that does affect the outcome of this election.
Thanks for listening to CityCast Boise today. If you like the show, you should definitely subscribe to our free Hey Boise newsletter. We'll have a bunch more election coverage before and after November 5th. And we'll be back tomorrow morning with a heated debate about In-N-Out. See you then.